Hello everyone, this is just a little spring weed slash flowers, herbs video. Just going to share what I have sprouting in my garden right now, or my yard rather. That's Merlin roughing me up and making me shake the camera. Sorry about that. This is Creeping Jenny, and it's that pretty yellowish green that it stands out really nicely. Once it gets going, it'll spill out over this and it spreads pretty well, but its color is different than a lot of the dark greens of my other plants. So if you like to have several different gradients of green in your garden, it makes a really pretty companion plant for that contrast. I love it. And then there's some clover mixed in. I'm just leaving it. I'm leaving all this stuff, y'all, because it's my favorite part of spring when all these little guys start showing up. Here I have some chickweed with the little white flowers, and I'll share on my Facebook like some medicinal value of some of these plants and that sort of thing. Got a little purple dead nettle showing up right there, but I've got a bunch of it in another place, several places. I'll show you. A bunch more chickweed. This was a pot of geranium last summer, but I know chickweed always shows up in this pot, so I don't do much with it. I just let it have its day in the spring. Here's a ton more chickweed. Such a delicate looking little flower. Hey Rossi, here we go. Snowdrops. The only ones I had come up. Rossi, watch out. Got my canna lilies starting to peek up. And remains of last season's canna lilies. These things will shoot up and spread. And they're bright yellow. Blue flowers are Veronica or Speedwell. Is also a name for them. And they're really tiny. I think they look blue, but this camera is making them look a little purple. Little dandelion mixed in there. And this is purple henbit. You can see the little tiny buds. Roxy keeps hitting my arm. You can see the little tiny buds where it's going to have a pinkish purple flower that comes out. Henbit is edible and has medicinal properties too. You can use it in teas and things like that. Often confused with purple dead nettle, which I also have. I'll show you. Clover. Here's some purple henbit that's blooming. Roxy, watch out. If it'll focus. And then there's actually the purple dead nettle right next to it. And there's a bunch more of the purple henbit. And then here's one of my favorite visitors every spring. It's shepherd's purse, which just showed up 2 years ago out of nowhere. I have no idea. I've never had it before in my yard. I'm so glad it decided to show up though. The shepherd's purse can be used in teas and is good for like in a poultice for nosebleeds, good for women's troubles, PMS, and any kind of irregularity with your cycle. And you see those little, they look like little pouches on the side of it, or little hearts. You got the flower at the top, but then along the stem are little pockets. I don't know how else to describe them, and I'm thinking that's where the name shepherd's purse came from, because they look like little purses. They're super tiny. And then that's what its base looks like, and you see the leaves and stuff coming up before the shoots come up with the flowers on them. It's hard to focus on these because they're very small. Here's another bunch of shepherd's purse. Surrounded by Veronica down there. And there's another. Right, here's some purple dead nettle. And it's not stinging nettle, but it still has kind of a scratchy little stem on it. So if you're using it for tea, or you're gonna eat it, because you could eat the leaves, it's a good source of vitamin C, but you'd want to take that stem off. And I just let my leaves go wild, or my weeds go wild, because to me they're not exactly weeds. This is cleaver. These are cleavers, and they'll branch out and get real big too, and they're sticky like that. It feels like Velcro on them. They'll stick to you when you're walking by once they get bigger. And then you may have seen it, there's going to be a thistle, which of all the things out here that I consider to be, you know, like a weed slash friendly plant, this is the one that I have mixed feelings about. Spreads like crazy. I do rip them up sometimes, whereas a lot of these I don't, because they spread so crazy, and it does like have sticky parts on it that'll hurt you. But of course there's the Scottish connection, which I love about thistle, so I let some exist. Here's a sweet dandelion. And then this is my great-grandmother's yarrow, which has been just thriving all spring, even with temperatures in the 20s and ice all over the ground. It's still done fine. Actually better than fine. And I might take some of it and transplant it somewhere else and have 2 clumps of it out here. Here's some wild onion, which I have in several places. And I leave it because I have fond memories of playing with wild onion whenever I was a little kid. And I like the way it smells. I'm weird like that. Here's a little Johnny Jump Up. It's in the violet family, related to pansies and wild violets, you see? Sorry for the shaking and all that. I'm being stalked. Look at all this Veronica. It's everywhere. See, I just can't understand why people would not want all these pretty little flowers in their yard. Why that's considered undesirable, I'll never know. And then I've got wild violets popping up, which really get me excited. I connect those with the fae. And to me, whenever I see the wild violets, it means like the spring fairies are awake and they are doing their thing out here. See all the little purple violets? Try not to step on them. And they've spread quite a bit this year. see their leaves pretty well right there. And then more cleavers, which have medicinal properties too. And I'll post those on Facebook if you're interested. Oh, there's some big leaves for the violets. Yeah, that was the bigger spot, and that's where I think they've branched out and why they've spread so well, because I was nursing that one all last year. Here's another patch. There's some purple clover. If you can see that. And this is my flower bed. I haven't cleaned it up because I know the violets live in there. And they're not here all summer. It's much too hot for them later in the summer, so I leave them for the spring while it's their prime time. And then my lilies need to be split up. I need to do that soon. But it's been cold till just recently. All those cleavers there I leave, but in the dead of the summer I'll pull some of them up because there's just so many. I actually had some lily damage from the cold this season, this winter. This is in the buttercup family. I can't remember its name, but they are not edible. I think they're kind of considered toxic, but they're pretty. The bees like them. Little unopened violet. That's wild strawberry. That little serrated leaf, the 3 little serrated leaves there, that'll grow into a vine, and it's more of a, looks more like a raspberry, but it's a wild strawberry. Here's me. I look like a tent because I'm leaning over. So my shadow's not very flattering. Look at me. It's not a flattering shadow. There's another one of those buttercup things next to some veronica. Does anyone else think of that Elvis Costello song, Veronica? Okay, so these yellow flowers, a minute ago I told you wrong, I think. The yellow flowers here are the blooms for these wild strawberries. But they look very similar to something else I know that I have out here that are yellow flowers like that are buttercup. And I can't remember what this is called too, but this is this long, tall, lanky thing that have yellow flowers on it. You can kind of see them, they're little tiny yellow flowers. I've written that down, I don't recall that name. There's some more lumped up in some nettle there. This is the place where I let most of my wild onion grow. It's a big one. And then that's a canna lily in the middle there. That's an orange canna lily. Let's see if it's sprouting. Yep, it is. Good. So he'll be coming along. He doesn't get as tall as my yellow. And I do pull up some of these onions when it gets to be summertime. But right now in the spring, I'm just so excited because my grass has been dead and everything's been bare all winter. So anytime these little guys start popping up, I get really excited. These are some of my daylilies. They need to be separated. And they're all different colors. The swarms of bees, which is a good thing. They're loving these things. Purple henbit and some clover. I actually have some clover that's blooming somewhere. I just saw it. So I'm sure the bees are all over that. There's some plantain, which is good as a band-aid. And I have some broadleaf plantain too. And I leave it. That's great stuff. I've actually cut my hand pretty bad out here gardening and stuff, and used it better than a band-aid. Stayed on, stuck to my skin well, stopped the bleeding as the anticoagulant. or coagulant in it that keeps you from continuing to bleed. Well, thank you for watching. Thank you, Merlin. And maybe I'll do a little more informational kind of video about some of these herbs and what their uses are. But until then, I'll see you later. Have a good weekend.